The streets are talking, but this time, someone with real insight is speaking. Fly Ty isn't just another rapper sharing opinions. He's lived life, seen loyalty, survived betrayal. And now, he's saying something nobody wants to admit. The streets and gang life is over. For years, names like Jim Jones, Max B, and Mel Murda defined what it meant to survive, to rise, to command respect in the streets. Their stories inspired thousands, fueled mixtapes, and built legacies. But behind the music and the headlines, the truth was always harsher, darker, and more dangerous than anyone dared to acknowledge. Fly Ty's revelation hits like a shockwave. It's not just about fame or money. It's about survival, trust, and the collapse of a system that once ruled lives. He warns that the streets no longer protect, the gangs no longer govern, and the lifestyle that once promised power now only leaves scars, jail records, and regrets. Fans and outsiders might see Jim Jones, Max B, and Mel Murda as legends, but Fly Ty shows a side that's raw, unfiltered, and chillingly real. The lessons are brutal. Respect is fleeting, loyalty is conditional, and survival requires more than strength. It demands awareness, timing, and, sometimes, walking away. When someone who's lived it declares the game is over, it's more than a statement, it's a wake-up call. And for those still chasing the thrill, still glorifying gang life, the message couldn't be clearer. The era has ended, and the streets are no longer the same. The question now is simple. Can anyone truly survive in a world where the rules have changed forever? When Fly Ty declared, "The streets and gang life is over," it wasn't just words. It was a statement loaded with decades of experience, betrayal, and observation. To anyone watching from the outside, it might seem shocking, but for those who've lived it, it's a truth long coming. Names like Jim Jones, Max B, and Mel Murda aren't just rappers. They're symbols of an entire lifestyle that's finally hitting its limit. The streets, once a place of hierarchy and respect, now feel hollow. Loyalty, the cornerstone of gang life, has become transactional, fleeting, and easily broken. People who were once considered brothers have turned into rivals, not always out of choice, but out of survival. Fly Ty has seen this firsthand, navigating alliances that shift overnight, friendships that dissolve under pressure, and lessons that cost more than money, sometimes costing freedom or even life. Jim Jones, with his empire and charisma, once represented power and influence. Max B, with his unique wave, symbolized opportunity even behind bars. Mel Murda embodied the raw, unfiltered street reality that both terrified and inspired. But Fly Ty's point is that the era they symbolize, the era of codes, of respect, of street rules, is over. The foundation that built these icons is crumbling. According to insiders, what's happening now is subtle but undeniable. The streets no longer enforce loyalty. Social media has replaced reputation. The gangster persona, once rooted in action and consequence, is now judged by likes, streams, and viral moments. The old system, where mistakes carried weight, has been replaced by digital validation. This shift isn't just cultural, it's existential for anyone still trying to survive in that world. Fly Ty recalls specific moments that illustrate this collapse. Meetings that once carried authority now end in uncertainty. Deals that should have been grounded in mutual respect now depend on timing, optics, and the fear of public exposure. The very rules that govern behavior, which once made the streets predictable despite danger, are now unpredictable. Alliances form and dissolve without notice, and trust is harder to come by than ever. He warns the younger generation who idolize figures like Jim Jones or Mel Murda, it's no longer enough to emulate the past. Doing what was respectable in previous eras will not guarantee survival today. New threats, unseen to those outside, dictate power dynamics. Betrayal doesn't announce itself. Danger doesn't wait for warning signs. And a moment of weakness, no matter how small, can have irreversible consequences. Fly Ty doesn't just speak in hypotheticals. He talks about real events, about situations where street figures who once thrived suddenly find themselves isolated. Legal trouble, feuds, and internal conflicts escalate faster than ever. Even minor infractions now gain life-altering consequences because the old networks of protection are gone or weakened. The system that once maintained a rough equilibrium no longer exists, and anyone relying on its stability is risking more than they realize. Social media has amplified the collapse. Secrets are no longer private, and moments that once could be contained now spiral into public spectacles. Feuds that could have been settled quietly now play out online in real time, creating pressure that didn't exist before. For someone like FlyTie, this visibility isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. One wrong post, one misinterpreted action, and consequences can escalate beyond repair. The mental toll is heavy. Those immersed in the streets feel it most acutely. FlyTie speaks candidly about the stress, the constant calculation, and the paranoia that comes with living in an environment where loyalty is fleeting and survival is uncertain. The adrenaline, once tied to respect and action, now comes from navigating chaos and anticipating threats that can emerge anywhere, anytime. Yet amid all this, FlyTie emphasizes one lesson: awareness is everything. Knowing who to trust, understanding shifting dynamics, and being able to step back are not weaknesses, they're survival tools. And while the streets may be over in the way they used to exist, knowledge, strategy, and caution are the new rules. He reflects on conversations with Jim Jones, Max B, and Mel Murda, noting that while their experiences vary, a shared understanding emerges. The old ways no longer work. Power has shifted, priorities have changed, and the structures that supported their rise have eroded. This isn't just a statement of fact, it's a warning to those who think they can replicate the past without consequences. In essence, FlyTie is documenting a turning point. The era of unquestioned loyalty, the era of strict codes and boundaries, the era where reputation alone carried weight, those days are gone. For anyone still operating under old assumptions, the risks are higher than ever. For those willing to adapt, there's a chance to survive, but only by accepting that the game has changed permanently. The conversation isn't about fear, it's about reality. FlyTie's message is clear: the streets are no longer forgiving. Gang life, once romanticized and celebrated, is a shadow of its former self. The players remain, but the rules, the protections, and the structure that made it all work have disintegrated. Survival now depends on awareness, strategy, and the ability to see beyond glorified images of the past. As the industry watches and fans speculate, FlyTie stands as both witness and commentator. His words aren't just reflections, they're guidance. For anyone seeking to understand what the streets have become, what gang life now truly means, and how legends like Jim Jones, Max B, and Mel Murda fit into this changing reality, his insight is invaluable. Because one thing is undeniable: the streets may be over, but the lessons remain. And those lessons, if ignored, could be far more costly than anyone anticipates. Because the streets may be over, but the lessons remain. And those lessons, if ignored, carry consequences that are as real as they are inevitable. FlyTie didn't just make a statement, he painted a portrait of an era fading into history. For decades, people like Jim Jones, Max B, and Mel Murda lived by codes that governed loyalty, respect, and power. Those codes dictated movement, alliances, and survival. They created structure in a world that often seemed chaotic. But as FlyTie explains, that structure has eroded, replaced by uncertainty, unpredictability, and a digital age where perception often outweighs reality. In conversations with insiders, FlyTie recounts moments where street dynamics shifted almost overnight. Alliances that seemed unbreakable crumbled because one side misinterpreted loyalty, or because the internet amplified rumors faster than people could act. Texts that once carried weight now circulate online, turning minor disputes into viral spectacles. Social media has turned privacy into a myth, and with it, the protective framework of the streets has weakened. He reflects on Jim Jones, once a symbol of power, influence, and strategic dominance. Jim Jones navigated both the music industry and street life with precision, understanding the importance of alliances, loyalty, and timing. But even he, according to Fly Tie, could no longer rely on old structures to shield him. The streets that once obeyed unspoken rules now operate under new pressures, new variables, and unpredictable responses. Max B's experience is equally illustrative. Behind bars, Max B's influence was legendary. His decisions shaped movements, dictated reputations, and created waves in hip-hop culture. Yet, Fly Tie points out that influence alone cannot survive without the support of a functioning system. When loyalty erodes and traditional networks crumble, even the most iconic figures must adapt or risk becoming irrelevant. Mel Murda, the raw embodiment of street reality, shows how exposure, unpredictability, and rapid shifts in alliances can redefine survival. Fly Tie highlights examples where moments of perceived weakness could have resulted in disaster. Minor incidents that would once have been contained now explode because the old structures no longer exist to regulate consequences. Every action is scrutinized, every decision carries amplified risk, and every misstep is broadcast to the world. Fly Tie emphasizes that these changes are not just cultural, they are existential. For anyone still trying to navigate streets or gang culture, the old rules don't apply. Survival now demands awareness, patience, and strategy. Acting impulsively or relying on outdated principles can lead to irreparable damage. The romanticized notions of loyalty and respect often fail to reflect reality. And those who fail to recognize this risk more than reputation, they risk freedom, opportunity, and even life itself. He recalls incidents where figures close to him had to recalibrate their strategies in real time. Messages, meetings, and movements were carefully calculated to avoid unnecessary exposure. Social media posts were scrutinized before release. Partnerships were tested not by old codes, but by the ability to navigate new pressures. This wasn't about fear, it was about intelligence and survival. The psychological impact is immense. Fly Tie doesn't sugarcoat the anxiety, the stress, and the constant vigilance that comes with living in a world where loyalty is conditional and protection is fragmented. Even for veterans, this new environment requires constant adaptation. Decisions are no longer made in isolation. They reverberate across networks, online platforms, and the public eye. The pressure of visibility has replaced some of the danger once controlled by the streets themselves. Yet, amid these challenges, Fly Tie finds clarity. He notes that those who recognize the shift and adapt will survive. Awareness, strategy, and timing become more important than raw power or old-school reputation. Understanding who to trust, when to act, and when to step back are the new pillars of survival. These lessons are subtle but critical, and they are rarely taught outside first-hand experience. He also addresses younger generations drawn to the romanticized image of gang life. The myths of power, respect, and street credibility often overshadow the brutal realities of danger, legal consequences, and instability. Fly Tie's warning is blunt. Following the footsteps of Jim Jones, Max B, or Mel Murda without understanding the changed landscape is a recipe for failure. Emulating past legends without adapting to current realities can be deadly. The collapse of old structures doesn't only affect the streets, it impacts the industry and culture as well. Music, promotions, collaborations, all are now influenced by visibility, perception, and social media narratives. Decisions that once depended on respect or reputation now hinge on optics and engagement metrics. What was once private, controlled, and negotiated in person is now scrutinized in real time, with far-reaching consequences. Fly Tie's story is filled with examples of how these pressures manifest. Minor conflicts are amplified. Allegiances are questioned. Mistakes, even unintentional ones, carry disproportionate consequences. The streets no longer offer the predictability of old. The same actions that once commanded respect may now provoke backlash or isolation. Yet Fly Tie stresses that while the streets and gang life as they existed may be over, there is still opportunity for those who adapt, observe, and act wisely. Survival requires discipline, patience, and the willingness to step back when necessary. The old rules might be dead, but the principles of strategy, awareness, and timing are timeless. He concludes this part of his reflection with a chilling reminder: the glamour of gang life, The thrill of power and the illusion of loyalty are fading. The real challenge is understanding the new rules of survival and operating within them. Ignoring the lesson could be far costlier than anyone anticipates. Fly Tie's words resonate because they come from experience, not speculation. They highlight a transition, a warning, and a guide for those navigating the remnants of an era that defined an entire generation. Because in the end, it's not just about streets, it's about survival, foresight, and understanding that the game has changed forever. Because in the end, it's not just about the streets, it's about survival, foresight, and understanding that the game has changed forever. Fly Tie knows that the consequences of ignoring this truth are severe. The streets no longer function under the old rules. Respect can no longer be demanded. It must be earned through awareness, calculation, and timing. Alliances that once seemed unbreakable can crumble without warning. Loyalties shift overnight. And the public eye, magnified by social media, turns private missteps into public spectacle faster than ever before. He recalls the countless moments when veterans like Jim Jones, Max B, and Mel Murda had to adapt on the fly. Decisions that were once guided by experience and street code now require a new kind of intelligence. It's not about physical strength or influence alone. It's about strategy, perception, and knowing exactly when to move or stay still. The wrong move, no matter how small, can have irreversible consequences. Fly Tie emphasizes the psychological burden. Every day is a calculation. Every interaction is a test. Trust is conditional. And mistakes are magnified, not just by rivals, but by the entire ecosystem of fans, industry figures, and social media observers. The thrill of gang life, the adrenaline, the reputation, the power has been replaced by anxiety, vigilance, and the constant weighing of options. Yet amid all the pressure, Fly Tie sees an opportunity for those who truly understand the shift. Survival doesn't require glorifying the past. It doesn't require reckless action. It requires observation, patience, and the ability to anticipate moves before they happen. Those who master this dynamic gain an advantage far more powerful than raw influence. He warns the younger generation drawn to the romanticized image of street life. What you see on music videos or hear in lyrics is a shadow of reality. The streets and gang life that legends once navigated are gone. Trying to emulate past icons without understanding the present risks legal trouble, betrayal, or worse. Fame and respect can be fleeting, sometimes costing freedom or life itself. Social media, Fly Tie notes, has changed the game completely. Minor incidents that were once contained locally now become global discussions in hours. Alliances are scrutinized, every post is analyzed, and reputation is constantly at risk. The digital age amplifies mistakes and diminishes the protection that once existed within the streets. For insiders, this is the single biggest threat. Visibility replaces discretion, and exposure replaces loyalty. The collapse of the old structures also affects the music industry. Collaborations, features, and promotions are no longer guided solely by respect or reputation. They are now influenced by optics, engagement, and public perception. Those who fail to navigate this landscape are sidelined, not because of skill or talent, but because of misalignment with the new rules of survival. Fly Tie shares examples of close calls where timing, silence, or strategic retreat saved careers or even lives. A single misstep, a rushed post, or an uncalculated confrontation could have ended opportunities permanently. These aren't hypotheticals, they are lessons learned from experience, repeated across the careers of the very icons he references. But despite all the chaos, he stresses that adaptability can turn the tables. Those willing to read situations correctly, move cautiously, and anticipate threats are positioned to thrive. The streets may have changed, but the principles of awareness, timing, and intelligence are timeless. Respect earned under these conditions is far stronger than that commanded by fear. Fly Tie also highlights a chilling reality. The romanticism of gang life is fading faster than anyone realized. The stories of loyalty, brotherhood, and honor have been replaced by instability, mistrust, and public scrutiny. Legends like Jim Jones, Max B, and Mel Murda survived through a combination of skill, strategy, and timing, but they also learned that even icons are vulnerable in this new era. He ends this reflection with a warning and a lesson. The streets and gang life that shaped an entire generation are no longer what they were. Surviving now requires more than courage. It requires intelligence, observation, and patience. Every decision, every move, every interaction carries amplified weight. Missteps are unforgiving, and the new rules leave little margin for error. Yet within this bleak landscape lies a chance for those who are willing to adapt. The game may have changed, but survival is still possible. Not through repetition of the past, not through reckless bravado, but through careful planning, awareness, and respect for the new realities of power and influence. Fly Tie's message is clear, chilling, and unavoidable. The streets as we knew them are dead, but the consequences of ignoring this fact are alive and waiting. For anyone still chasing the allure of gang life, the lesson couldn't be more important: adapt or pay the price. And as the dust settles, one thing becomes painfully obvious: this isn't just the end of an era. It's a wake-up call. The era is gone. The streets are no longer a playground. And survival, more than ever, demands understanding, awareness, and the courage to see the truth in its rawest form. If you've been watching closely, you already know this isn't just another story about the streets or gang life. It's a revelation. Fly Tie has pulled back the curtain, exposing truths that most people wouldn't dare speak out loud. He's talking about legends like Jim Jones, Max B, and Mel Murda, and the shocking reality that the streets as we knew them are over. Now it's your turn. Don't scroll past silently, drop a comment, and let us know what you think. Do you agree with Fly Tie's warning? Have the streets really changed, or is this just part of the evolution of hip-hop culture? Your perspective matters, and we want to hear it. If you respect real insight over glamorized images, hit that like button. Every click helps us push these stories to more people who need to hear the truth. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because when the streets speak, you won't want to miss the next chapter. Remember, this isn't just entertainment. It's a wake-up call. The game has changed, the rules are different, and survival depends on awareness, strategy, and understanding the reality beyond the headlines. Fly Tie gave you the insight, now it's your move. Comment, like, subscribe, engage. And most importantly, pay attention. Because in a world where the streets and gang life are no longer what they once were, knowledge is the only thing that can keep you ahead.